The Smartman Show with Brian and Nate. I am Nate.
I am Brian.
Welcome to you. Welcome to all of the people that are subscribed and following this podcast already. You should download it for a commute like those people, all the millions so far. The millions of intended followers.
Yeah, not just my mom, my sister, my brother. Way more than that.
It is episode 5. We haven't found a title yet. By the end of the show, we'll have a title figured out. Maybe not during recording, but certainly in post production.
Yeah, we'll come up with something.
Several segments, including talking about people that don't have an internal monologue, which is nuts to both of us.
It freaks me out to think that somebody sitting in a room with me just has complete blank in their head. Nothing going on, no internal monologue. They don't hear their... Like, for me, I hear my own voice in my head.
Absolutely.
And to think that somebody's just sitting there blank, all I can think is psycho.
Well, it's probably not true.
No, it's not. Like, there's a really large amount of people that don't have it.
I think it's a large minority, but there's a lot of people within that minority. But we do have a video that we'll check out from hopefully somebody that does not have an internal monologue's perspective, and that'll be interesting to check out.
Okay.
And then Ted Lasso season 3 review. I finally finished that. So
yeah, you did, and I am excited to talk about it. I have had to hold back so much when talking Ted Lasso with you because I didn't want to ruin anything.
Yeah, I didn't want you to. It's such a weird thing. It's especially when you love it, and it's something that you've watched several times. No,
8.
I'm on
8 times.
I'm on my 3rd watch through of season 1 right now, and I'm going to watch the whole season of the whole series all the way through.
You keep watching it. It happens.
So we'll talk about that coming up. We're different as far as you and I about like how we feel about being older. I love it. You're not as big a fan.
No,
you know.
No, I'm the guy who has been trying too hard to hold on to his youth. like I was never flat bill hat guy. I'll never wear one of those ever. And then I found one I really liked. I started wearing it, and I'm like, I feel like I'm trying too hard.
Well, here's the thing. You wear watches a lot.
I do.
You know?
I
Those are not going to make you younger. You
What?
know? It's an old man thing.
Listen.
You know?
These
They're nice watches, though.
watches that I wear are quality and will never go out of style. This is not your run-of-the-mill watch, Smitty.
I'm not saying out of style. It just makes you look old.
No, it does not. It does. Fuck you. It does not. This is a nice watch. Do you see what this watch is? Do you see that?
I mean, yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah, no. This is.
I know you're Nobody knows you're a watch nerd yet.
Shut up. I'm so mad that you
I enjoy wearing watches.
No,
but
man.
I accept the fact that I'm old.
You
and I embrace
absolutely just devastated me with that comment. I'm so
your watches.
Hey, old man, you're wearing a real watch. That's not gonna make you look young.
You've been for years trying to hide your age, and you're wearing it on your wrist.
This is a sign of what's the word I'm looking for? Not stature. Oh my God. For a person who talks for a living, I sure don't have words.
Not stature, but like not class, right? Like
yeah. It's a sign of class. I'm gonna go with that.
Like a higher class of a human?
Yes.
Like
I'm better than you because I wear a real watch. You just wear a piece of technology on your wrist.
I was wearing a watch up until I got it ripped off at work, and I'm just like, well, I'm not doing that. You know, it just caught something, and I'm like, oh, I'm not wearing it to work, so I'm not going to wear it.
Yeah, I guess I'd be pretty pissed off if that happened.
Yeah.
I would be mad. But yes, anybody who happens to be listening that does not wear real watches and wears those technology ones, I am better than you. I just make that clear.
There's probably, at this point, a mix of the both, where you can get technology watches mixed with something that looks like it's, you know.
No. Keep the digital out of watches.
How many watches do you have?
Truthfully?
Yeah. You can't even count? You don't even know?
Hold on. I'm thinking of So I have a watch case that's in my bank.
Seriously?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
A watch case in your bank?
Yeah.
You could put physical objects in your bank?
It's called a safety deposit box. Yes.
Oh, wow.
There's probably, I don't know, there's probably 20 in there that I don't keep at my house because.
Whoa!
Yeah. Because if somebody broke
there's
in,
20 you have 20 watches in one box in the bank.
Yep. And then
Wow.
when I want to wear one of them, I go to the bank and I just sign in and I take my watch out. It's safer that way. You don't keep stuff like that in your house.
I don't know why. Why don't you get a safe?
Because somebody can take your safe. They're not going to... Listen, the chances, first of all, if bank robbers are going to come in and rob a bank, the chances of them even bothering with the safety deposit room, unless they're looking for a specific safety deposit box, very unlikely.
I don't know why, but this is one of the more interesting, hilarious trivia nuggets I've found out about you in my entire life. Not the fact that you love watches. That is fairly normal. It's not even the fact. It's just that, like Bruce Wayne, you have to go to a safety deposit box when you want to get another watch.
Because you don't keep those in your house. If somebody breaks in, it's an easy steal.
Oh, like what else you got in your house that's an easy steal? What else is like the TV? You know, I'm sure you have like some sort of other technological things. You're building a studio.
I guarantee you that some of the watches that I have in the bank, I could buy 6 large screen TVs for how much they're worth.
Oh my God. That's so funny. I love it.
That's what
Get
I'm
a
saying.
safe. Just get a safe.
No, I am going to keep it in the bank where it is safe.
You gotta hide it. You gotta cut a hole in the wall and then put a picture over it and everything.
No, man.
Because that's fun. That's more Bruce Wayne-like than having to go to the bank to get a watch.
I just have a couple of knock-around watches that I can keep and switch out
How
every
often?
day.
How often do you go to the bank to get a new watch?
Well, I most of those are like special occasion watches. You don't wear them every day, so you just go once in a while. Pick one out, take it back.
You're a watch nerd.
I'm not a watch nerd.
You absolutely are.
It's not nerdy to love something.
No, that's absolutely what it is. That's what nerdy is.
I am cool, and I'm better than anybody that doesn't wear regular watches.
Hey Siri, what's the definition of a nerd?
Nerd is an informal term. It means a foolish or contemptible person who lacks social skill. You'll need to unlock your iPhone first.
Yeah, fuck off.
I love that your phone just said, "You know what? I'm not going to answer this question."
A person who is extremely enthusiastic and knowledgeable about a particular subject, especially one of the specialist or niche interest, like a fucking watch.
Watches are not niche.
Yes, they are. They are, especially now.
Shut your stupid face.
If you have one watch, well, that's normal. If you, you're a nerd.
All right. Well, let's move on.
But I appreciate it.
This.
I think it's fascinating.
I think this person's lying. I'm looking at her right now, and I think she's full of shit.
Well, let's find out, shall we? All right, we've talked several times and just how fascinated we are about the very idea that there are people out there living in this world in the year 2024 that do not have an internal monologue in their head. I got to tell you, it is fascinating. It is almost impossible to think about. Because
not a believable thing to me.
Because real quick, I mean, I guess if you're one of those people that do not have an internal monologue and you didn't know that there was such a thing, I mean, it is when you see a lot of times the old caricature of the devil and the angel sitting on the shoulder doing the talk about what's right and wrong.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's
in
your internal
100% nutshell. Always going on. What's the shitty thing to do in this situation? No, don't do that. That's a terrible thing. Don't think that. Don't do that. Don't say that. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Sometimes to the point where it's just like, shut up. You know?
I don't think I've ever yelled at my internal monologue, but.
Well, I do all the time. I do all the time. When it's.
I wish I could watch that.
Well, we talked a lot about mental health things and the terrible, shitty things.
Yes.
you say to yourself and convince yourself of all the time. Manifestations of your brain, just horrible things. I tell myself to shut up out loud a lot of times. I'm shut up. What is wrong with you? Why would you think those things, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But to somebody that doesn't have, to answer so many questions, like does somebody without an internal monologue get depression? Can you have depression without an internal monologue?
I never really thought about that. So for me, I mentioned this to you, like I hear my own voice in my head. That's what I hear. I hear me when I'm thinking, and I'm always thinking. I can't turn my brain off. I hear me. Whatever my thought is, whatever I'm thinking about, it's my own voice. So when I was reading about this, it said that they don't have a actual number, but anywhere from 30 to 50% of people do not have this internal monologue.
I thought it was way less. I thought it was in the 10 to 15%. I've never looked at statistics. So
I'm looking at the website bossproject.com.
Oh, that sounds legit. That sounds. How many people don't have an internal monologue? And certainly their internal monologues don't sing like mine do. What the fuck? Research estimates between 30 and 50 people.
Says 5 to 10% there, though.
Somewhere between 5. That sounds more reasonable. How common is not having an internal monologue? Boss Project. Fuck off, Boss Project.
I don't know what it is. Stop saying that.
Hog website.
What if it's like a mental health website?
I don't know. Let me click on it. Let's find out.
Oh, no, it's a podcast.
Oh, great. Sure. Yeah. Anyway.
Hey. Good for them. They've been doing it longer.
So there's this, pardon me, there's this video, a YouTube video from CBC News Saskatchewan, about 3 minutes. So we're going to take a look at that and kind of narrate over it and just kind of like trying to figure. It's such a fascinating, impossible thing, again, to even think about, you know?
I just tried to like let my brain be blank to see what it's like, and it didn't work because all I could do is think about how do I not think about things.
Right. And it's because I'm trying to talk myself in. I actually have it scheduled to start soon. I have like a 30-day challenge I'm doing, and meditation is one of those things. I'm trying to like do that more, or not more and more. I'm trying to get into it, just to calm that internal monologue. You know, the idea of not being able to shut my brain off, or it seems impossible. It seems impossible.
I'm a little freaked out about what this girl's gonna say.
I know.
I feel like I'm going to be judging her with my internal monologue while she's talking.
Be curious, Ted Lasso, not judgmental.
Yes. Good, valid
Sometimes
point.
I say things. Sometimes I say things that other people probably just think to themselves and just keep in their head. And
That's probably super true. Because, I mean, how many people do you know? And it tends to be a minority of people that you ask them, do you think about what you're saying before you say it?
Yeah, and if you don't have an internal monologue, you're not thinking about...
That's probably those people that just... I mean, we are known for blurting things out. That's kind of something we've developed because of the business that we were in, radio. It's best to say those things that are on your mind a lot of times, the first things. But in real life, I say this to people all the time. I do that shit in real life. It doesn't go over as well when you're not on the radio.
Yeah, because it's not... When you're saying something just off the cuff, and you didn't think about it, when you're on the radio, you're kind of disconnected from the people that
Reality,
are listening to
in
you.
a way.
Well, you're not in front of the person. Yeah. So first of all, even if you offend them, you don't care because you don't see that you've offended them. However, if you're in a room with a person and you say it and you offend them, you see their face right away. You know you messed up.
Yeah, that's one of those moments where you. But if you can't think about they're not thinking. They can't think. Is that what that is? That's not true. How do you think? How do you think?
Still feel like you probably murder people and leave their body parts
I say
all over the
that
woods.
Other people probably just
If
think
you
to
don't
themselves
think.
and just keep in their head, and that's fine. Keep it to yourselves. It's probably better.
I don't have an internal monologue, she says.
Hi, I'm Olivia Rivera, and I don't have an internal monologue. this is something that's kind of been going around the internet lately. If you've seen it, some people have an internal dialogue or an internal monologue where it's more of a constant stream of thoughts. I, on the reverse hand, feel that my thought process is more like sporadic or random jot notes. It's not my voice talking all the time, and it's more like I'm just seeing lines of thought, and maybe they have voices associated.
It's very interesting what she's saying there, because I tend to think in the same way. Not that it's not always necessarily in my voice. You know, if I'm thinking about something else, it's in their voice or whatever. I think in your voice when we're talking.
Oh, that,
you know what I mean?
That's got to be weird.
It's not really. It seems pretty normal to me.
I just I'm trying to see now. Maybe I'm the odd one out. Maybe I'm a smaller percentage of something, because I can't in my mind hear your voice.
Well, I think now I'm thinking maybe I don't actually have an internal monologue and I'm just crazy, but I clearly do.
Are we the weird ones?
Well, yes, but that's not necessarily why. But I tend to intake information, and especially when dialogue is being spoken, in like flashcards. You know, like definitely I see things in words all the times. I just see things in words, and that's how I construct my thoughts, and then the internal monologue takes over, and I start, you know. So it happens at the same time. Actually, it's fucking weird.
I've had a conversation with my wife. Like everything to me is black and white when I read. There's no, you know how people picture things when they're reading that are being described. For me, it's just black and white words. Like I can't, in a book, I can't dive into what they're trying to explain. The picture's not painted for me, if that makes any sense at all. So again, another way of thinking that it's weird for me. I cannot look at a book or read a book and go, oh, they're painting the skies as like this blue color, and
it's interesting.
It's just black and white words, dude.
I'd be interested. This could be a bonus segment for the Smartman show, but it would be fun to have you read aloud and then see what kind of like because I think if you said it out loud, I think it would input it differently.
Maybe. But I haven't read out loud since like third grade, and that might be embarrassing.
You read things
out loud?
When are you opposed to doing embarrassing things?
For the class? Read in front of the class?
Yeah, that'd be fun, yeah.
What if I get to a word I don't know how to pronounce?
I don't know, maybe I should get a book right now.
No, let's not.
Can we? I'll get an easy book. Dude, I'll get an easy book.
He's going to bring out one of those, what are they called? The golden books, the kids' books.
Oh, I do have some Dr. Seuss books floating around. There's Disney books, like Jungle Book and stuff, you know. But those already have pictures.
God. Yeah, the pictures might throw it off.
Okay. Let's continue.
Thought, and maybe they have voices associated to them or tones associated to them, but not necessarily my voice. If you're typing something on a computer and the lines are just kind of like appearing on the screen, I think that's kind of how my brain works, and that's why jot notes feel like the best way to describe it. When I hear that other people have like a constant kind of dialogue and stream in their head, and that when they're doing a task, they'll just be thinking about things the entire time they're doing a task, it actually kind of feels a little overwhelming. Like how do you deal with that? And how does that feel? I always thought it was something that people just manifested and made up for movies and books and characters, just to kind of like explain your inner thought process and like have like a way to explain your inner thought process. But I didn't realize that it was actually that constant for people, that people did actually have a little kind of voice in their head telling them different things and what to do and what to think and stuff like that. I don't have that. Sometimes I will just speak it out loud. I find that, especially when I'm alone, I'll just kind of like, encourage myself out loud versus kind of saying it in my head. Music lyrics come into my head a lot, and I'll hear the music as the singer sings it.
So pause it for a second.
Yeah.
I came into this like thinking, people who don't have an internal monologue must be murderers and blah, blah, blah. And now hearing her say like she doesn't have the millions of things that come along with whatever you're doing, whatever task you're doing, all of the questions and anxiety and questioning yourself, I'm now jealous of her.
Yeah.
I went from thinking they must be these weird psychotic people who keep to themselves, and it didn't feel right to me. Now I'm completely jealous of her.
I would love to, and this does not seem like a stupid person.
No.
But I would be interested to know, compared to people with inner monologues, people that do not have inner monologues, what their IQ looks like.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't put my IQ up against anybody.
Well, I'm just saying it'll be an average, obviously. And I'm not, again, this person doesn't seem stupid or...
No, she's well-spoken.
But, I mean, it's kind of, I think, a valid point, a valid question.
Yeah. She's probably... Look, if you can do a task going A to B without a bunch of zigs and zags in between... I feel like you'd be better at whatever you're doing.
Man, if I could, seriously, because that's the ADHD and things I'm kind of finding out about myself, it's just, there's a million different things going on.
Yeah.
I'd be nice to just be like, there it is.
I hate her.
My thoughts through before I say something. That is something that I never ever was good at when I was growing up. I'd constantly get in trouble, especially my mom. She'd try to kind of instill in me, no, you have to think before you speak, because I would often put my foot into my mouth and say something that I probably shouldn't have said. As I grew up, it didn't get better. I didn't think before I spoke. It's almost like I just got better at reading the situation subconsciously and knowing what to say and what to respond with. Because I'm not running things through my mind first, it does kind of lose that filter first, and that kind of contributes to the whole, people often know what I'm thinking because I will say exactly what I'm thinking. I think it is something that we should know more about, because I think that helps knowing how other people think. You can kind of react better and maybe expect
it makes
less
so much
or
sense.
more for a situation, because you can understand how they might be actually thinking in their heads better.
Can I tell you what just went through my internal monologue?
Sure.
So this is a clip from CBC News. The girl's clearly Canadian.
Saskatchewan.
She said about instead of a boot, and it was like, she said that wrong. She's Canadian. She's supposed to say a boot. And she said about.
She said some other very Canadian things.
She did, but she got through about without saying a boot.
Well,
that was good.
Not all Canadians are going to fit into your
stereotype,
higher class watch wearing idea of what a Canadian should sound like as an American watch wearing opinion.
I mean, seriously, it is an absolute stereotype of Canadians that they all say a boot, but
they don't all drink maple syrup. They're not all nice.
We'd be a lot happier as a world if we all would drink a little maple syrup now and then.
I think so.
I fucking love syrup.
I think so.
Oh, what a weird.
Anyway,
a weird difference of thinking and how the brain works in people.
It still seems incredible and just unfathomable, because that's just how I thought my whole life. It's hard.
When you're even having a conversation, as I'm talking to you right now, your brain is probably already thinking of what you want to say next.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest problems, especially when I forget where I'm at.
Yeah.
It's because I'm thinking of the next thing, and then where am I? And then I forget the point.
Yeah.
It just goes.
It's such a different, unique thing to be able to not have that going on in your head.
Again, I think I might envy those people.
I do. I'm not joking, dude. I went into it thinking they were psycho murderers, dismembering bodies, maybe keeping a few in the fridge or the freezer. I went from that to being completely jealous of the fact that they don't have this built-in anxiety around whatever task they're doing. I think that's awesome. It would be so good to do anything without having the 100 questions about what you're doing and if you're doing it right, and is it worth doing, and are you going to be judged for doing it this way, and everything that comes along with it. I'm so jealous of their ability to not have to deal with that.
Yeah, because again, man, I would love to talk to somebody that knows. How likely is it for somebody that doesn't have an internal monologue to have depression or ADHD or any of those things, Because, I mean, autism, too, in a way, because I think a lot of the way autism works, especially once you get into the more severe spectrum of autism, it's you have all these things in your head and you just don't know how to get it out. So that's why so many people with severe autism, they don't speak. They have it in there. They just don't know how to get it out. They don't know how to access those things, to access that communication.
Well, I decided to look on the internet for your question about does people who don't have inner monologues get depression?
Yeah.
And I found the very scientific Reddit.com where somebody says, I'm no expert.
Well, yeah, it's a great place to start, honestly.
I mean, at least they were honest about that. But a big part of depression is the shitty things the voice in your head tells you. So if you don't have an inner monologue, you don't hear those voices. Therefore, you shouldn't have depression, or at least as bad of depression as people who do.
Well, that's bullshit, assuming probably, since you started with, I'm not an expert.
Another person said, I believe depression killed my inner monologue.
You know what that's like? I asked this one question doing an Irish reaction to something, and it was some sort of commentary about Northern Ireland, and I said, look, I want to hear from people from Northern Ireland about their perspective rather than Americans' perspective. And like one of the first comments was, well, I'm an American, but I was there for like a week, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, Jesus.
Didn't you know, as Americans, we're experts on everything?
I think we are. So, I don't know. Maybe if we can really find some good information on that at some point coming up, I would like to include that maybe in a follow-up.
Maybe we can find somebody who doesn't have an inner monologue and have them talk with us about it. That'd be cool. I mean, we'd have to assume they're being truthful.
Well, right. But you could just get somebody by happenstance that doesn't have depression.
Yeah.
You'd have to have a sampling size of people without internal monologues.
I have a sampling size of Reddit.com with a question and 3 people answer.
I'm no expert, but you sound like you don't. Shut the fuck up. Ted Lasso, season 3. So far, the only seasons I've completed, all 3 seasons of what I think is one of the best shows ever made.
I 100% have that as my number 1.
I can see how, and I'm just trying to think back historically at like my favorite shows, and they're favorite shows for a reason, for different reasons.
Yeah. I mean, you can make multiple lists.
I'm not going to include Band of Brothers on there because I don't consider it to be a show. It's episodic, but I call it a movie.
It is amazing.
I call it cinema. It's one of the greatest things ever made. But I'm thinking like just my favorite shows, man, of all time. The Walking Dead, and that kind of cuts off at a certain point.
Some shows stay on
Stranger
too long.
Things. You watch Stranger Things?
I have. I'm caught up.
Cheers, MASH. Game of Thrones. There's probably a couple more in there, but I mean, for my money, Ted Lasso could very well be the greatest show, my favorite of those.
So I'm Ted Lasso. I am Golden Girls. Such a great show. I don't care what anybody says. It still has.
It's a good show. I appreciate it. This is not among my favorites.
I would have to say Big Bang Theory, The Office, Parks and Rec. I like those type of shows, so those are all in it. But there's something different about Ted Lasso. There's something about this show that makes you happy while also making you face some things that you didn't maybe realize were going on with yourself.
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. Where things you've experienced or something like that. Not necessarily that you didn't know was in there, but you didn't know it was going to hit you the way that it did in some of the parts of the show.
Yeah, I mean, so season 3 to me, it gets a lot of flack, actually. A lot of people.
Really?
Yeah, and I
About
can't
what?
figure out why. People are like, oh, certain characters shouldn't have had a redemption. And I'm like, bullshit. That's
like who?
literally.
Like Nate?
Yes.
That was the whole idea
That's
of
the
that show.
Whole point of the season was
forgiveness.
Yes, and you had a guy who went from unable to speak to people or look them in the eyes to finally getting a little bit of recognition, and then having to experience this inner hurt because he didn't want to say anything about how he was feeling because he felt like he wasn't being noticed anymore. And all of a sudden, he goes completely the opposite direction that you're expecting. And it's very out of character for him. And you can see there's little moments where he's torn about being that way. That's literally the point of the show. But people give season 3 hell for that reason.
They're probably the same people that hate Jenny and Forrest Gump. We talked about that one already. But
well, yeah, but they also were like, well, they added all these different storylines.
I know, but I still, I can't stand that sort of, that sort of criticism. It's not really based on anything. I'm going to use Game of Thrones as an example. There's all sorts of people that talk all sorts of crap about that last season.
Yeah.
And
I loved it.
I don't see that criticism at all. Just because it didn't go the way you thought it should go, and they didn't do certain things with characters you wanted them to do it with, it still was Game of Thrones. It still threw curves. It still did the shocking thing, know?
They also missed those people. So the Dragon Queen, what's her name? I forgot. It's been a while. Daenerys. All these people were like, that's not in her nature to just go burn down cities. And I'm sitting here going, how many times has she toed that line throughout the show?
Plus, it's in her family history, so
that's
what they're trying to portray.
Yeah.
She became the Mad Queen. But
she herself, she had anger problems throughout the whole damn series, and people were like, she wouldn't do that. And I'm like, dude, she's had different people stop her from doing that type of stuff already. Some of them are now dead and not there to stop her anymore.
They're just dumb. They just seem to be dumb criticisms.
I just feel like people miss certain things, and because they miss it, then they come at these shows in a way that they're attacking it, and it's like, well, is it the writers or the actors' fault that you didn't catch the little nuances that were happening throughout the whole series?
Yeah, I really try to think of that last season and just see how anybody can have a problem with it.
No,
it's brilliant. I love, again, the forgiveness aspect when Coach Beard showed up and hugged it out and he forgave him, and you find out why the things that happened.
Brick of meth.
Totally hits you. Yeah, brick of meth, And you're like, man, because that guy, you knew that Coach Beard had stuff going down, but you didn't know kind of the extent of it and their history necessarily with Ted Lasso and that, and
why he's so loyal to him.
Yeah,
you get to learn all of that in a perfect monologue.
It was so good. I'm glad. I think it's just the perfect 3 seasons of TV.
Are you nervous now, having completed the series and knowing that at least a season 4 is coming, maybe another?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that I'm on board now. I mean,
but you're not afraid that they're going to screw it up?
It depends what screw. Well, because I say you get upset about things that happen and you're not happy with it. When is it actually a turn in quality, and when is it actually because you don't like it? I mean, that dumb argument. I'll use Walking Dead as an example. I'm a firm believer that after that season where Negan killed everybody and started off with him killing Glenn and Abraham, and then.
Well, by the way, spoilers for every show.
At this point, if we're saying we're talking about Ted Lasso, we're saying we're talking about if you haven't seen Walking Dead by now, I don't. Cancel culture. No, not cancel culture. Spoiler culture. is another example of too woke. Where it's just like, dude, that used to be just a topic conversation. Don't tell me you can't bring it up.
Right.
You know?
I mean, and you can't really go on the internet the day after something airs and not accidentally see what happened anyway.
But you can't tell me that Walking Dead, when that first season of Negan, where he was so brutal and it was just all Negan that whole season, the backlash that it received had an impact on the quality. Because it pulled so many punches when it shouldn't have. It became a caricature of running into walkers in the wrong scenario. It became, the writing wasn't as crisp. It really took a downturn in quality in writing, I think.
Showrunners changed. I think people were so upset about Negan's brutality, and I'll never watch this show again, that they're like, oh, we probably need to reel that back in. And it's bullshit, because the comics that it's based on, he didn't reel it back in. Negan is who Negan is. And what he did in that season is not nearly as brutal as some of the things that he did or does in the comics. Now, you don't get his backstory that you did get in the comics about how he was a gym teacher at a high school. He always swore around the kids because he wanted them to think he was cool, which kind of shows his infatuation with Carl.
Sure.
You know, wanting Carl to think he's cool.
Yeah.
Like walking him around the place like, yeah, kid, this is what it's like to be king.
Yeah.
Like, if you knew that about Negan going into this, you would understand why the character was played that way, but you don't really get that full background of his character that you might have got if you were into the comics and things like that. I got into the comics late. I would have to read compendiums to catch up for the comics. Then they did change a lot from that story, but yeah, it's I don't know. I get what you're saying, how people's opinions are changing these shows because they're like, oh, well, there was a lot of backlash. We got to do something different.
Right. But again, so if we're both in agreement that there was a change in quality and that was the reason why it took, because if they would have kept the same sort of vibe and the same writing and the same showrunner and all that stuff, I think it probably would have saved it.
Yeah.
But, Ted Lasso, I'm assuming most of the creative people are back doing it, or else what's the point on that show? And people running that show kind of see the importance of it, I feel like, and they kind of get the significance of the show.
And when you watch the actors talk about being on the show, you can see how much they loved that show. Like Hannah Waddingham, she's amazing. Rebecca.
Yeah. She's great.
Watching her talk about the show and how it changed her life and how it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to her, and you know how much love she has for the cast and everybody, and like when you watch her talk about it, you can see the excitement on her face. And I think if any group of people is so excited about a project and they get in a room and do it, it's gonna kill. And I'm not overly concerned. I would be a little concerned if they said that everything was going to change how they were doing it or whatever. I would be a little concerned, but I'm not concerned. I think we're going to get another season, 2 seasons, maybe 3 seasons, because I feel like they're not going to write it for 1 season. They'll do what they did the first time. They wrote a 3-season arc. They went into Ted Lasso as a 3-season arc. That was it. That was all they planned for.
Do you want to do some predictions? Do you want to predict so it's for the record?
Yeah, let's do predictions. I'm down with that.
I'm trying to think of how they get back in, because, Ted Lasso goes home and back to the United States, and he is his boys' football coach. Mm-hmm. I honestly thought this show ended several years ago, like 5-6 years ago, something like that. It only ended last year.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, I can't see him quitting his son's soccer. I can't see him abandoning that. I could see him choosing something more local. So if he's going to go back to England, I'm trying to think of the scenario. I was wondering if they would have him coach the World Cup.
That is absolutely a good way that they could do it.
Yeah.
My thoughts are Ted Lasso will become a background character. Ted Lasso will have cameos.
I don't think so.
I do.
I don't think so. It's about Ted Lasso's.
I think it's because the whole ending of the show, it wasn't about me, and they changed the book to the Richmond way. And I think that that's what it's going to become about, Richmond. It's going to be about building the female team that they talked about at the end.
Very possible.
I think Coach Beard and I think Roy will become the head coaches. Nate will be there by their side. But I think along the way, Ted is going to be dropping in with his nuggets of knowledge, maybe come out and visit. Like,
Maybe.
I feel like that's the way they got to go.
Well, I mean, that's possible. It's possible. You
Ted
brought
found
up
his happiness. You know, he found out, like, he finally got over his wife leaving him and realizing that he could just focus on his son now. And I feel like they can't go back on that.
That was the one thing I was really disappointed in on that last episode. I wanted, similarly to in season 1, the Trent Grimm, the Independent episode, where you hear Trent Grimm narrating the article that he wrote.
Yeah.
And it turns out to be super complimentary. I wanted it to be a throwback of that. I wanted the whole episode to be Trent Grimm narrating the book that he wrote about it. And I was pissed off that there's not an actual book about it that I can read.
Edit. Do you want to fix it now? It's Trent Grimm
What?
with a C. You keep saying Grimm.
Oh,
you
I'm not
wanna-
going to fix it.
Okay.
Trent Grimm. Trent Grimm. Grimm, not Grimm's brothers. Grimm. Trent Grimm.
I still think that's one of the best jokes. I do think that's one of the best jokes in the show is when Trent loses his job at the newspaper and Ted's like, so it's Trent Grimm, Independent. And it's like laughing my ass off. It's such a good joke.
I love so much rewatching this series already, and we talked about it earlier, where you seriously catch so much,
The jokes.
so many more things. You know, I love it. I love rewatching it. I bet you I'm gonna rewatch this series about as much as you.
Dude, I'm on 8. Like I'm so ashamed to admit that, but like when I have downtime. Because I think that's a sign of, I actually think that's a sign of like mental disorder. Like one or two times, maybe taking a year or two off and then watching it again. Dude, I have literally, since the show ended, rewatched it 7 more times.
So did you watch the series in real time?
I watched the first 2 seasons right before the 3rd season dropped. And then I had to wait week to week for it. That's the other thing.
I wish that was the way it is still. I wish they would drop it weekly.
See, and I actually think that that's why the 3rd season catches so much hell. I think that most of these people, because that show didn't catch fire until late into the 1st season. That's when it really picked up with people watching. I think a lot of people were like me, where they could watch episode after episode, and there wasn't that week in between where you could forget little subplots or storylines or things like that. And I'm wondering if that's what made the 3rd season harder for people to take.
So they did it weekly. And the first 2, they just binged it.
No.
They just released it so you could binge it.
No, they did it weekly, but I think because their viewership went up after the fact.
I see what you're saying.
Kind of like Schitt's Creek. I never even heard of that damn show until its final season was about to air, and then I watched it and binged it. It's a hell of really funny show.
I haven't watched that one yet.
But it was the same thing with Ted Lasso. I think more people, it became more mainstream after the first 2 seasons were done and they were getting ready to release the 3rd season, where people binged it and got really into it. And I think that watching the 3rd season, where you had to wait every week for a new episode, was probably a little harder for people to swallow.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many people that throw a fit if it's not available all at once anymore. But man, that was the thing too, where it just adds so much more excitement and anticipation when you gotta wait a week. Oh my God, it is Ted Lasso night, or it is whatever night. MASH is a great example. You know what I mean? Where you're just waiting to find who shot JR. We'll find out next year, and then you gotta wait 2 more episodes or something.
I do hate, and always have hated, season finales. I understand why they are necessary to like have that big what happened moment. I always hated those. For my biggest fear for any show is getting into it having this massive cliffhanger at the end of the season, and then they decide to cancel it, and I don't get a closure. I can't stand not getting that closure. It's like an itch I can't scratch, and I freaking hate it, dude. Hate it.
Yeah.
Can't stand it.
I love it. I mean, I hate not knowing. I hate having to wait, but I mean, it's kind of the best way.
Yeah.
You know?
I'll tell you what. If anybody's listening to this, if you watch Ted Lasso and you don't like it, you have to comment for 2 reasons. I want to know why you don't like Ted Lasso, and then I want to berate you in the comments about what an ass you are.
What kind of a heartless fuck are you? It's the same people that talk about Jenny and say, no. There's a couple people that I've, including my brother, who I've said, watch the show, dude. You know, it's fantastic, and I'm waiting for them to come back and just to see.
Because they shrug it off. It's not something that they sound interested in. And then they finally find time to give it 1 episode a shot. And I think with that show, you only need the first episode to go, this is good.
That's rewatching it. I'm like, okay. It kind of gives you, I was wondering about that, kind of how it begins, how it ends, just to see where it's going to go. And that was thinking about it when I started rewatching it yesterday. And I think it catches you from the first episode. I'm pretty sure it got me in the first episode. I'm like, okay, I kind of see where they're going. I kind of
the humor, the heart, it's all there, dude. It's all there. I don't, like I said, if you comment and you don't like it, you are going to catch hell from me.
I think a lot of people would, I don't know. I think there might be people that would say they didn't like it because they don't like facing those things in themselves.
I also
and
think
it can be maybe overly positive for some people.
I also think there's people that will say that they don't like it because everybody else does, and they're too cool to like what other people like.
Yeah, I mean, there's that aspect too.
It's pretty much Smitty when it comes to music.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's just your stupid music that you want me to listen to.
You're such an ass to me.
You made me do it. You made me be mean to you. Look,
you'll get to know over time that Smitty and I have this very, very interesting view on music, and it's it's probably the one thing we can spar on for hours.
No, yeah, and you wanted me to do a reaction.
Yes, I still do.
To Brooks and Dunn with their famous song Boot Scootin' Boogie that I've heard many, many times. But this particular version is with Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm.
Yep.
I'm not a fan of that band necessarily. I think she can sing. And I can tell you that I don't love the first song. I don't love the original. I'm not a fan of like most 90s country. And I don't care to hear some lame-ass version, rock and Lizzie Hale version of it. I don't care to. I say open rock and roll minds on the reaction videos all the time, and I mean it. And there's all kinds of stuff that I watch and listen to, and I'm like, okay, I had the wrong idea about that. But when it's bands and songs that you are already aware of and you know you're not good, I know I'm not going to want to hear any sort of other version of Boot Scootin' Boogie.
Hey, be curious, not judgmental.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Yes! Ted Lasso for the win.
Maybe a morbid curiosity reaction like I did with Monologues.
You should just do a whole feature called Morbid Curiosity, like reactions.
All right, that's gonna wrap up the show. What are we doing now? Am I doing charts? Chart your farts.
Chart your fart. That's an action. By the way, that's not us being immature. That is
it is.
A little bit, but this is like a legitimate government thing that's happening. Like a government has sanctioned a website for charting your farts.
Oh, man.
This is not just you and I being immature. Now, we'll be immature when we talk about it, but this is sanctioned by government.
Science. It's science. Also, the Tyson fight. We might get to the lab monkey escape. We might just delete that. I mean, it's just fun to talk about a little bit. But Hallmark movies, Hallmark Christmas movies, as well, which is one of Brian's favorite things.
Love them.
Watches and Hallmark Christmas movies. Till next time.